Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we are finally going to be talking about the newest album from Moron Police called A Boat in the Sea. I think the general reaction from anybody who has heard about this has been, where the hell did this come from? Followed by, wait, these guys? You serious? And that's a fair reaction. For those of you who recognize the name Moron Police at all, you might know them more for some Norwegian progressive metal that was more in the comedy scene. A scene I don't normally touch because comedy music is incredibly subjective and I've got strange taste in comedy. And going back to Moron Police's first two albums, well, their debut had a lot of promise and showed a band that could split progressive heaviness with real hooks and some real wit, but it seemed to curdle in their second album, Defenders of the Small Yard, into something darker with an odd, unpleasant sourness to it. This was a band that released a single called Teabag Your Grandma. That should give you a rough idea where some of the humor was going. Coupled with a math rock side that was very much not my thing. After going through those first two albums in preparation for this one, I seriously questioned if it would all be worth it. But a lot of people who have heard A Boat on the Sea have not stopped raving about it, and the recommendations, they really only stepped up after my Tool review, where I professed that I liked a lot of my progressive rock and metal to have a lot more melody. So, okay, with all that in mind, what is A Boat on the Sea? Oh, okay, wow, this was a ton of fun. And yeah, it's exactly the sort of progressive rock that I'm inclined to really love, and I really do with this thing. And yes, I know I'm very much late to the party with A Boat on the Sea, given how this has made some waves, but it's also a project that for the last month or so, whenever I've had just a free half hour, it's become the album I would put on without question just to boost my spirits. And I gotta give Moron Police a ton of props for that. Hell, not even just that, but for honing in on their huge melodic hooks and sharpening that sense of humor to cut a lot deeper than many will expect or predict. Yeah, you think they might double down on being shamelessly goofy, but there's actually a fair bit more going on beneath the surface. And the more I delved into it, the more I found myself convinced this could easily be one of the best goddamn rock albums of 2019. And that's not a joke at all. This is something special. And you know, I want to start off with the instrumentation because what Moron Police do, it's so straightforward, you could be forgiven for thinking that it might even just be easy. Just center the strong and consistent melodic motifs across the entire project that are not precisely simple, but can be repeated and mirrored across numerous instruments to drive some already strong hooks deep into your head. This is not a prog rock band that's ever been too good with its technical complexity or speed for an anthemic hook that it will then stack across watery synth lines, Hammond organ, piano, guitars, bass line, and even accordions and saxophones. But with a lot of keen eyes for transitions, it often layers a couple of those melodic hooks within the same song to keep them vibrant and sticky. And a huge part of this is really smart mix balance, courtesy of Mike Watts. The percussion work might not jump off the page in the same way that some of the melodies do, sure, I'll say that, but it's never distracting as a support to some very well-developed bass patterns and a constant focus on those hooks. Hell, for the solo on The Invisible King, the main melodic motif just shifts to the bass for the keyboards and guitars just to cut loose. Or take out the lead hook on Captain Awkward's provides a real focal point amidst the incredibly jittery verses that play with a lot of funk and the fizzy burble of the arrangement, and yet when you think it'll just become too frenetic, it slows down for an acoustic reprise that is just perfectly timed there. And there are so many of those little instrumental moments and just precisely placed slowdowns and change-ups to highlight they're squished into 8 short songs. The strings, the horn solo on the dog song, the really terrific piano break on the Undersea that I really liked, the almost lounge-inspired cadence on the outro of Beware the Blue Sky, or even just how the band will stack the vocals so high to produce more of a choral effect and make those anthems all the sweeter coming off those choruses. And let me stress, so much of this works because Moron Police have such a great knack for transitions. Given the frenetic speed and the diversity of instrumentation and tune, it'd be very easy to induce a lot of whiplash, even within songs. But Moron Police don't just allow developed breathers to build melody in between songs. Between Captain Awkward and The Undersea, it's a great example, as is between The Invisible King and Beware the Blue Sky, but actually within songs as well. It feels so liquid smooth, with no passage that feels feels really forced or out of place within the composition. Now, that's not saying that there aren't a few issues here, though. For one, while the production is impeccably clean and smooth to accentuate those melodies, and the irrepressible, jaunty energy of this whole thing, it does really get to you, but you can also tell that the sizzle of some of the guitars has been muted for being as burly and vibrant as you would hear in their metal days, which comes across most in the buzzy passages on the back half of the album, particularly on the undersea. Now, don't get me wrong, it is not a bad choice, but Moron Police probably could have afforded to let some of these songs get a little chunkier and a little heavier, and I don't think their audience would have minded at all, especially if those melodies remain at the forefront coming off the synthesizers or even the guitar leads. And that highlights how this album does feel a little bit homegrown in some of its production. For as anthemic as it can be in composition, the limited budget, it does seem to be in the picture, with the choice to rely on overlayered vocals, and a recording that doesn't quite have the same bombastic, dramatic swell that it could. And that means that some of the textures don't quite have the same bite to me. Now, it's not a deal breaker, it's still mixed and mastered incredibly well with the right sort of balance, but there are other producers who could give this album the sense of bigness and epic swell in tone that they clearly want, and really, I'd be amazed to see how this would play live. I imagine that you would get some of that bigness. But a criticism I have seen some others having with this project is that it might come across as a little bit too chipper and flashy. A lot of progressive Technicolor flair, but clearly playing for more of a comedic effect. And yet, this is not something I agree with at all, and that takes us to the lyrics, where Moron Police might have smuggled in one of the bleaker criticisms of war and US imperialism I have seen in a long time. No, I'm not kidding with that. Both the Phantom Below and the Invisible God are from the perspective of soldiers in what has been framed as a holy war, with serious questions of the judgment of those sending them into battle and then pulling their strings. In the latter case, featuring a passage with some sampled wartime propaganda to drive that forward. And Moron Police, they aren't done, because Beware the Blue Skies is a sarcastic and biting slice of anti-drone rhetoric that doesn't just target the US, but their home country Norway's complicit weapon sales and neutrality. It's one hell of a wallop to pack into such insanely catchy hooks, which makes the shift to a cut like the Dog Song, all from the perspective of an innocent, happy-go-lucky dog. It might seem awkward on the surface, but this is where subtext and theme slide to the forefront, because there is a lot of otherwise savage language, including that dog's thoughts on that song. But that's an intentional parallel to the animal instincts being agitated by those higher powers across all those people in the rhetoric on the album. And when you live under it in an extended period, well, the panic and anxiety of Captain Awkward seems to make a lot more sense now, does it? And yet this is where the themes of the album snap sharper into focus, because humanity loves to serve and elevate those higher powers to win favor, often in bloodthirsty fashion over each other, but said higher powers are often just constructs that are pitting us against each other, and in an increasingly apocalyptic world, why engage with any of it? You could just chase your passions, do what you love, and then die. And if you think that's a strikingly nihilistic point of view to match with something this anthemic, well, it is, but Moron Police tempers this worldview on the final two songs, not just in how disengagement from that pointless conflict can harden you in order to confront the real issues, but also highlighting that it shouldn't all be for self-interest, and that we do need to be there for each other, especially so history does not repeat itself yet again. In a way, a lot of the thematic art feels strikingly reminiscent of what Falls of Rhoros did on Patterns in Mythology earlier this year, but with the decidedly acrid satire in the content, especially given how infectious the album is otherwise, this might stick the landing a little bit harder, and I actually think it really works. But to sum this all up, yeah, I know, I'm late to the party, but I gotta hope more word is spread about A Boat on the Sea. More people, they will show up if they hear this. Moron Police delivered a quick, insanely catchy, remarkably cutting slice of progressive rock that is overstuffed with hooks to spare, and while many people might come for what they see as the comedy, the refinement of the satire gives this project some genuine teeth along the way. And again, for a project to remain this sticky despite so many listens I gave it, has to show it's doing something right. So as for me, yeah, light 9 out of 10. Absolutely recommendation, especially if you're into more of the progressive rock and metal, more on the melodic side. And if you want something that's got some depths beneath that boat that many won't care to see, yeah, this is up your alley. It's brilliant stuff, a complete surprise for me in the best way possible. Absolutely make the time. check this out. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. I kind of know I'm like a few months late to this. This actually dropped in mid-August, and while I was actually on vacation in the UK. But yeah, I finally got a chance to talk about it in length. I really want y'all to check it out. So links to buy and stream down there below. And I got the poll up there. I'm curious where more progressive metal types will fall on this, because yeah, I really dug it. Beyond that, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And if you're looking for new episodes of Billboard Breakdown or other reviews, links in the card right over there. But till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.